Okay, seeing it's just past 10 a.m., we'll begin our session and people can continue to join us as we go along. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on fostering a circular economy in construction. I'm Amrit Manhas. I'm the Economic Development Officer with the City of Nanaimo, and I also chair the Circular Economy Accelerator program. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm joining this call from the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nations. This webinar is a webinar in a series of 4 webinars on the Circular Economy Accelerator program. The tourism hospitality webinar was held on May the 17th. So if any of you missed that one and are interested in seeing it, that recording is available on the VICEDA website. That is viceda.com website. Our upcoming webinars include food and beverage processing on June the 14th, as well as how local government can support a circular economy on June the 28th. So be sure to register for those upcoming webinars as well. Next slide, please. This accelerator program is an initiative of the Vancouver Island Coast Economic Developers Association. VICEDA is the short acronym for it, as well as the Synergy Foundation with support from 8 program partners. VICEDA is a coalition of Vancouver Island and coastal community leaders. They promote, enhance, and advocate for sustainable community economic development in our region. Our financial partners in this program are Island Coast Economic Trust, City of Nanaimo, Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization, Cowichan Valley Regional District, City of Port Alberni, Municipality of North Cowichan, City of Campbell River, and Gabriola Island Chamber. Next slide, please. The Circular Accelerator project is providing hands-on support to 16 businesses from Vancouver Island, the Gulf Islands, and Sunshine Coast to adopt circular solutions into their operations. Synergy staff do an on-site visit with each of the businesses to identify opportunities, and they produce a custom report to reduce waste, energy use, and emissions. On average, these reports have identified 41 actions to be implemented per business. This means 28,000 kilograms in waste reduction, 91 tons of CO2 emissions reduction, and over 1,500 cubic meters in water conservation per business each year. From the City of Nanaimo's perspective, this program aligns with our official community plan. We had great interest and positive feedback from our businesses that have participated in this program. This program helps them to move from having circular aspirations to implementation. We already have some businesses that are on the wait list for phase 2 of this program, which we hope to start next year. With that, I will turn it over to Georgia from Synergy Foundation to lead us through the rest of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amrit. My name is Georgia, and I'm the Director of Program Operations at the Synergy Foundation. And I've had the pleasure of working collaboratively with VICEDA on this project. So I'm really grateful to be here today to have the opportunity to speak about the circular economy and the Accelerator program as it relates to the construction industry. I'm joining today from the unceded traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. I encourage everybody to also share what territory they're joining from in the chat, as I know we have a diverse representation today. This morning's webinar, I'm going to start with a brief introduction to the circular economy and some definitions just to ensure that we're all starting on the same page with this. I also want to share some business highlights from the Accelerator program for the businesses that were within that construction sector. We're going to have some guest speakers today. So we'll have Noah from NEXUS Modular Solutions as our Accelerator Business Showcase, and Peter with Global Remediation Technology for one of our Circular Solutions Spotlights. At the end of today's session, I'll share some additional opportunities and we'll discuss next steps. So when we talk about the circular economy, I always like to take a step back and look at our current economic system, which is linear. So right now we're extracting virgin resources from the earth, we're turning them into new goods, shipping them around the world, often globally before we're purchasing them as consumers for use, often only once before they are ending up as waste, ending up in our landfills or in our environment as waste. So we know that this model is not sustainable, and we know that the circular economy offers significant both economic and environmental opportunities. So here in an equitable circular economy, resources and manufactured goods are designed to remain in the system. This is done through innovation, reuse and repair, redistribution, reconditioning, and recycling processes, all of which are then ideally powered by renewable energy. So as a result of this system, pollution and waste are now eliminated. And these innovations are also what's enabling affordable lifestyles and empowering new ventures to create green jobs for the future. So through the Accelerator program, we worked with businesses to, to identify opportunities to utilize these re-entry mechanisms, these kind of 5 loopback processes within their business to enhance circularity within their operations. So when we work with businesses, we're focusing on material, energy, and water waste. And as you can see here in the diagram, these inner loops, the ones in the green color, are smaller. And so we prioritize these re-entry mechanisms first because they're keeping the goods and materials in circulation at their highest value. We then work our way out using recycling as a last option when all other re-entry mechanisms have been exhausted. So some highlights with the businesses from the construction industry. So we worked with 5 different companies in the construction industry, from builders and prefabrication to paving and construction disposal. Amongst these businesses, we identified a cumulative 198 actions to enhance circularity in their operations. And the measurable actions that we identified have the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 879 tons of carbon per year and reduce waste by over 81,000 kilograms per year. And so these are just for the actions that we could measure. There are additional reductions opportunities that just were not quantifiable based on the baseline data that we had. Some of those business highlights and solutions in practice include resource recovery and resale. The next 2 kind of go hand in hand around steel framing and modular construction methods, to increase efficiency, minimize construction waste, and seeking alternatives to lumber and opportunities with recycled steel. We also have opportunities to enhance the amount or the percentage of reclaimed asphalt pavement or RAP in mixed designs, as well as looking at fleet transition plans, so longer term planning to reduce emissions in company fleets, from right sizing vehicles to electrification and exploring opportunities with biodiesel and hydrogen. So before we jump into our guest speakers, I just want to do 2 quick polls. So Maddie, if you could launch our first one, we just want to get a sense of, what do you feel is the most problematic waste stream within the construction industry right now? And so you can select multiple options. And if there's something that you want to contribute that's not on this list, please feel free to pop that into the chat as well. We're going to be doing similar polls in all of the webinars to get a sense of perhaps any trends amongst industry as well. I'll just give about 10 more seconds to get as many folks to answer the poll as possible, and then we will move forward. Great, I'm seeing lots of great answers rolling in here. Definitely single-use items kind of leading the way in the poll, followed by soft plastics. That seems to be a very common, difficult item, and then wood, of course. Wonderful, I think we will end that poll, Maddie. And a brief share of the results, definitely having the single-use items leading the way, followed by soft plastics and wood. And again, if there's other materials, please feel free to share those in the chat. And then our next poll, just what do you feel is needed to reduce waste in the construction industry? So is it, do we need to build more capacity and have more education opportunities? Is it really a funding barrier, or is it an infrastructure barrier? Or do we need to have more products and services, new ventures coming online to help support this transition? And again, if you feel that there's something else that's not listed here, please share that in the chat. Looking like a pretty close tie between education, recycling infrastructure, and alternative products and services. And if you've listed alternative products and services, I'd be curious if there's something specific that you wanted to share in the chat as well that we could capture. All right, in the interest of time, I think we'll end this poll now as well. Do a quick share of the results. So education leading the way. So great to have everybody on the call today to talk more about the circular economy and construction. We'll stop sharing there. All right, so I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker, Noah. He is the Business Development Manager for NEXUS Modular Solutions. So they participated in the VICEDA Circular Accelerator program and completed their opportunity assessment earlier this year. We had a lot of fun working with their team. So Noah's here to share a bit more about the work that they do at NEXUS and what they've done to enhance their circularity in their operations. So Noah, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Georgia. First of all, before we get started, I just want to thank VICEDA and Synergy for making this possible for us to participate in this and be able to showcase some of the positive effects we saw through this process and tell people a bit about who we are and what we do, the products that we make. So really excited to be able to share with everybody today. Thanks for jumping on. As Georgia said, I'm going to give you sort of an overview of NEXUS, who we are, what we do. I'm going to show you some fun pictures of what we make and where we're located, the shop we work out of. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we have sustainability as one of our company values, why we chose to participate in this accelerator program, what we learned, some of the current initiatives that we have in place for to make ourselves a circular business and lead the way in that paradigm, as well as some of the larger initiatives that we have planned in the future. So sort of what's on the horizon for us. And then some of the problems that we're currently facing. So issues that we are having in terms of moving forward in that process as well and how we're addressing them. So, and then I'll take, as Georgia said, about 5 minutes at the end to answer some questions if anybody has any as well. So let's go with the next slide. So first of all, who is NEXUS? Well, we are a certified modular builder, which means we are a licensed manufacturer and not just a retailer. We are certified to build to CSA A277, Z240, and Z241 qualities. So for some people that might sound like just a lot of numbers and letters, but if you're ever looking at building modular, those will be some of the requirements that your municipality will have in terms of what you need those buildings certified to. So that's what we do. This is a picture of our shop. It's located in the Cowichan Valley in Cobble Hill area. It's about 16,000 square feet. I'm going to say about 15,000 square feet of that is actual factory floor space, and then 1,000 square feet, give or take, is our office space, our staff lunchroom, communal space, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, let's go next slide. So what do? You might have gathered already that we build modular structures. So everything from large commercial projects, we've done apartment buildings. We're in the process of building a 4,500 square foot school at the moment. So we do multifamily projects as well. We do a lot of single family residential. That's sort of our sweet spot. What we like to do the most is work with individuals that are purchasing their first home or looking to downsize, or people that are moving to the island because it's such a wonderful place to live. Seeing an increased demand for garden suites as well. So that's another niche that we're trying to fit as well, trying to meet that provincial government mandate to densify and provide housing. So we're looking to do that for people in an affordable and quick way without compromising on quality. And I'm hoping to showcase that to you guys in some of the pictures that we have displayed here. So this is a good example of our current show home. You can see we're looking to change the definition. We have a lot of people that show up and talk to us about what they feel prefab used to mean. It's really quick, really cheap, it's vinyl back drywall with battens and everything like that. But you can see in some of these pictures that we've got, custom cabinets, we've got engineered hardwood flooring, we've got quartz countertops, modern appliances, modern plumbing, modern light fixtures. We've got custom tile showers with in-floor heating. So we're really looking to educate people on what modular can be, because you take all the advantages of that manufacturing process and apply them to the building process. So you don't have to compromise in quality at all, but you're going to save a lot of time and you're probably going to save a lot of money too. So yeah, let's go to the next slide for this one. This is just, again, one of our garden suites. So you can see lots of different finishing options too. Instead of drywall, we've got white shiplap in this one, vinyl plank floors. Again, more quartz or marble countertops, all custom on the inside. So again, just really working to show people that modular has come a long way. I mean, we're biased, but we think it's the future of construction. So it's always really exciting to have people show up and take a walk through our shop and walk through our show home and go, oh my God, I didn't know that modular was capable of doing this. And so it's really fun to be part of that process and changing that perspective that people have, let's say. Let's go to the next slide. So this is an example of a big multifamily project that we just did. We did this actually with our local First Nations band, Cowichan Tribes. This was the largest residential development they'd ever done, and also it's the highest energy step code. So this was all built to step code 4, which was a very interesting learning process for everybody involved. But it's meant to be a communal space as well. So you can see there's some photos of a sport court that they've got there. So it's meant to be a space not only for their members to live, but also to bring the community together in terms of having a place for families and kids to come and play and spend the day and interact and just solidify that community membership component. So we were really excited and really, really honored to participate in this program. But again, just another showcasing of the capacity of what modular construction is capable of. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. Awesome. So talking about sustainability as a value for us, I think I have these points sort of out of order. I want to start with the middle one. I want to say that our NEXUS team, everybody that we employ, all of our subcontractors and trades, our suppliers, we like to adhere to what we call the 50-kilometer diet, which means we want to get as much of that labor, as much of that material locally, because we like to support the local economy. And because all of our members and all of our teammates work in this area, and we've lived in this area for a long time, we understand how important it is to reduce our impact on this beautiful environment. So that is one of the big things for us, is we want to be sustainable and we want to move towards that circularity, because we don't want a bunch of garbage here. We want to keep it clean. We want to keep it pristine. We want to keep it beautiful. That's what the Pacific Northwest, it's one of its big draws. So that was a big motivator for us. Going back to the top point, the manufacturing process and what we do just lends itself to improving that sustainability. So we've got a lot of control in-house, a lot of efficiency and oversight built into what we do. We design in-house. So instead of just having someone show up on site somewhere and they leave all their materials, we're able to sort of make sure that everyone who comes in disposes of their waste properly in the receptacles that are available on site. And it gives us a little more oversight and control in that process. And then I would be remiss if I didn't say that we're seeing some economic benefit in that. We're definitely seeing increasing demand from some of our clients. And we want sustainably sourced hardwood floors, and we want things that aren't going to end up in a landfill in 10 years. So we want to build those full life cycle homes. We're definitely seeing more requests about solar and composting toilets and rainwater catchment and everything like that. So making sure that we're able to incorporate a lot of those is very important to us. Let's go next slide. Awesome. So some of our existing initiatives that we got, this was the case study that we did with Maddie and Georgia when they came in, which was a wonderful process, super easy for us. They did most of the heavy lifting, so that made that a really appealing process. But we were really excited to just see how we compared to traditional construction. So, and forgive my math, I'm just going to ballpark this, we're about 1/8 of the traditional actual construction waste per 2,000 square feet. So that was really awesome for us to see at actual numerical value to that. And then again, 1/15 or so of the greenhouse gas emissions was really exciting because we didn't know those metrics, right? We just knew that we were doing our best, but to actually see those written out was very, very encouraging for us. So some of the initiatives that we have presently, again, prioritizing that close proximity, so trying to minimize transport and keep that all in the family. Selecting high-grade, durable materials. We want to build those life cycle homes that aren't going to have to be disposed of in 15, 20 years kind of thing. We want them to last 100 years plus, something your kids can live in. One that we have here is actually we have all of our subcontractors and employees sign agreements with us that they're going to make sure to keep our space clean, and they're going to take, if they need extra time at the end of the day, they can stop their work early so they can dispose of all of their waste material that they've accumulated during the day in the proper receptacles that we have available on site. Projects are all made to measure, as I said, designed in-house, so that helps us really make sure we're not ordering too much or have too much left over. And if we do have some left over, we're able to utilize that again in future products because we keep it all indoors, so there's no weather exposure or anything like that that's going to ruin that. And then our reduced construction timelines too just helps make that project, that whole process a little bit more efficient for sure. Let's go to the next slide. Challenges we faced. So for any Stoic philosophy fans there, I have a Marcus Aurelius quote: "The impediment to action becomes the action, the obstacle is the way." Primarily our biggest challenge is just monetary, and we're going to see that change, especially as step code 3 and step code 4 and passive housing all becomes mandatory. There's going to be an incentive to develop better, more affordable products, but right now we're just sort of on the cusp of that. So putting solar panels across our whole roof, awesome, not super cheap. Adding additional infrastructure for electric machinery and buying electric machinery from the shop, amazing, but again, it has a large cost associated with it. So our solution for that is doing what we can, while we can, making small affordable improvements, and then planning in the future to have that infrastructure available for us for sure. And then secondly was just a knowledge deficit, and that's where the Accelerator program came in. You don't know what you don't know, so lots of help from Maddie and Georgia on that. And I'll speak a bit more about that in the next slide here. So why we did it, what we learned, what we're doing now from the Accelerator program. Well, as I said, why it filled in the blanks and aligned with our values. It was great to get an outside perspective. And again, Maddie and Georgia right off the bat were like, yeah, we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. You'll walk us through, give us a tour. We're going to do all the analysis. So that made it really, really easy for us. What did we learn? We had about 30-page report that we got back from them, which ranged from, are you doing organic composting? Are you buying organic or recycled paper for your printer? Are you using environmentally friendly cleaning products? All the way up to, well, have you considered putting solar panels on your roof? Have you considered doing rainwater catchment? So a massive range of stuff that they did a really good job estimating. These are the costs. This is the timeline. So it helped us see what we're able to do right now, and then sort of get the ball rolling and what we can plan to do in the future. What we're doing now, definitely some of those smaller things. As I said, we're doing all the recycled printer paper. We've got an organics recycling program going in now, a universal recycling program for electronics and batteries. So simple things that we're just like, oh yeah, why aren't we doing that? Sometimes it takes somebody to point those out, which was really helpful. We're very thankful for that. And planning for larger projects in the future for sure, which will lead us to probably our next big implementation, which is we put a down payment on a Scottsdale machine, like you can see in the picture here, which will do 3D extruded framing components for us. So structural steel production in-house. Again, it's going to help us increase our efficiency, reduce our timelines, pass those cost savings on to our clients. But it's also going to reduce our waste because everything's going to be printed exactly to the dimensions it needs to be. All of the punch out material will be recyclable, can be turned back into more raw steel that can be roll formed through that machine again. So, and then in addition to that, with that machine, we'll actually be able to provide framing packages to local builders too. So we'll be able to help provide some of that reduction in waste and timeline, some of that efficiency to local contractors as well, which we're really excited about. So, and then beyond that, I think we're just really hoping to continue serving the residents of Vancouver Island and Gulf Islands as we increase our offerings and improve our products and services. So yeah, that should be, well, it looks like I went about 11.5 minutes there. So apologies, but yeah, I've got a couple minutes now for questions if anyone has anything they want to know, or just curious about our process or our products or anything like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation, Noah. Really exciting to hear that you're able to start that transition over to the steel framing as well. So that was a very exciting update. There are a couple questions that have already popped up into the chat. The first one is from Rhiannon. She was commenting on how nice the interior was on the one photo with the shiplap, and was curious if you ever source salvaged shiplap or other salvaged lumber from companies like Unbuilders or Heritage Lumber or the Demex Center. And I know there's a new Demex kind of coming to the area as well. So I'm curious if you could speak a little bit more to that or any salvage materials.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we're moving towards. I would say that in the spirit of transparency, it's not something we've done in the past a ton. But again, being able to be put in contact with some of those companies like Unbuild that Georgia and Maddie were able to put us in touch with. We did have a huge Demex building center that just opened up across the street from us. So we've been going there for a lot of our materials that we can get from there as well. So I'd always say it's definitely something that we consider and we look at, and we're definitely open to, for sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. And then another question here from Jonathan. He's curious about modular designs and how they could perhaps have better privacy within their layouts. And maybe this is something that you're already doing as well.
Yeah, I would. Can you elaborate a bit on what you mean by additional privacy? So, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it just says better privacy within their layouts. Jonathan, I'm not sure if you wanted to take yourself off of mute and perhaps elaborate, but.
Yeah. So when I often see some of these modular things, I just I think well, I saw one of your things where they were just connected up. It was like it was a work site, but there was say 20 different individual modules. Maybe it was a horseshoe, I think I saw in your pictures, and I think like if you're building that way, and they're in sort of like a tank kind of. Like maybe just a metal barrier between one room to the next. What I would consider that would be like if somebody's like go to bed or whatever else. So it didn't look to me as in that structure as though that there was much privacy involved, what I could see, and if that doesn't picture, I don't picture that as a real kind of dwelling. I picture that maybe as a work site sort of dwelling rather than a.
I know exactly the picture you're talking about, the one that's on our website. Yeah, so I think that was a project that we went through some initial design work a while ago, and I think it was sort of before my time, but if I remember correctly, it was meant to be sort of like an at-risk population housing facility. So again, they don't want a lot of those closed if there's substances moving through. So they were in that sense. But in terms of privacy, I can definitely speak to that. We build to the same quality that you'd expect in a custom site built home. So, when we did, let's say all those apartment buildings, they're all fully sealed, totally private, soundproofed in between. All of our residential homes and everything like that. Wherever you're sharing a wall, unless we have a special project like the one that which I think was called the Warmlands.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
In Australia, we have a group called we put up. There's I say in Brisbane in Australia, there's a high-rise building, and they have that kind of structure like you're saying. And I've worked security in that building, and it is very shallow walls between room to room because of substance abuse and all those bits and pieces. Do you guys work? Do you integrate with human resources or humanities people like psychologists? And I'd wonder with that project, but no, that's a bit off topic anyway. But okay.
We're happy to integrate with those people. Absolutely. I would say it's project dependent for sure, but we've done a lot of emergency shelters for the Couch and Housing Association, which is again a local organization. So last year, I guess it was earlier this year, and late last year, we put in about 36 emergency shelters. And that whole process, again, we're working with that entire organization of what do they need included, where do they need them spaced, what kind of facilities do they want included there. So I would say that we never have someone that we are, we don't have someone working directly with us, but it's always usually part of the organization that we're working with that we have that input through.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that makes sense to me for that field. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sure.
I was just gonna say thank you so much, Noah. I just want to be mindful of time as well. So Noah, thank you so much for your contributions and for sharing your experience. And I'm sure there's still going to be some other questions that come up in the chat. So folks, if you do have more questions for Noah, please put those in the chat. And perhaps Noah, I could ask you to share your contact information in case anybody wants to reach out afterwards to learn a bit more about your sustainability initiatives and how you get all of your subcontractors and your subtrades on board with the work that you're doing as well, and communicating that to your clients too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for hosting.
Our next guest is Peter Reed. So he is the CEO of Global Remediation Technology. This is a BC-based innovative clean tech company with comprehensive environmental remediation approach that produces both clean water, soil, and aggregate to divert waste from landfill and save their customers money. So Peter, with that, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'll start by saying we're on the traditional Sanemo territory. And when we started here a couple of years ago, we had great support, fantastic support from the Sanemo First Nation, the regional district of Nanaimo, the city of Nanaimo, and the Port Authority. And my question, or the question where GRT came from, is soil a waste or is soil a resource? And it depends on your perspective. So if we go to the next slide, please. And it goes back to what is a waste? And a waste is something which comes from an inefficient process. So years ago, we threw away our glass or plastics or metal cans in the trash. And when we demolished buildings, we threw it all away. But now we're recycling our glass and our plastic and our metals, and we're starting to deconstruct buildings to save the components so we can reuse it again. And the question that we've asked ourselves is, can we deconstruct waste soils that are coming from construction sites? Next slide, please. And where this is coming from is in BC, in British Columbia, Canada, we're blessed. We have a lot of natural resources. We have a lot of sand and stone available, but other areas of the world do not have the same access to sand and stone, and they have to import it long distances. So in British Columbia, and this applies elsewhere, we use between 10 and 15 tons per person per year of aggregate. Metro Vancouver uses 37.5 million tons of aggregate per year, and Greater Toronto uses 19 million tons of aggregate per year. That's a lot of aggregate. That's more per person than petroleum or natural gas in the sands and the stone that we're using and we're extracting from the earth. Next slide, please. So when we have a construction job and we have to dig out for an underground parkade, say a 4-story underground parkade, moving that soil to a landfill solves one immediate problem, but does create 3 other problems, in that the landfills close to the urban areas are full. So the soil is being trucked further and further away. As it's being trucked further away to more remote landfills, it becomes expensive for the trucking cost and CO2 intensive. At the same time, the aggregate sources that are close to major urban areas have all been used up as well. So the aggregate's been transporting back further and further distances. So if we look again to both Metro Vancouver and Ontario, Metro Vancouver generates between 8 and 10 million cubic meters of waste per year, and Ontario generates 25 million cubic meters of waste per year. So that's a lot of waste that's going in trucks. It's a long distance. Next slide, please. So as we heard earlier, the usual approaches to development are linear, but why don't we reevaluate this and make it more of a circular approach to it and say, what can we make with that waste soil? And what do we have to do with that waste soil to make it into a usable product? And next slide, please. So when we deconstruct that soil, there are 2 things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is change the geotechnical properties of that soil. So it comes in as a soil which is unusable. It doesn't meet geotechnical properties to be used. The soil that does meet geotechnical properties gets reused right away. So we're pretty good and efficient at that. But the soil that doesn't, it needs to be changed. And then there's a chemical issue with it, in that a lot of the soils that are coming from urban densification have experienced gas spills or dry cleaner spills, or even the lead from when we burn leaded gasoline. So that causes issues for us to be able to reuse that soil. But what if we could reuse all that soil? We could look at what GRT does as a no-fill landfill, and that you bring in your waste soil, but it doesn't get filled anywhere, it gets reused, or a no-dig quarry, in that we're generating aggregate, but we're not digging a quarry anywhere that's coming from waste. Next slide, please. So this is what we have. This is GRT's, exodus, which is lifting up the soil and putting in our plant. And this is what comes out about 30 minutes later. We come up with rock, aggregate, C33 sand, and a silt clay mixture. And that silt clay mixture meets as a 10 to the -8 hydraulic conductivity. So it meets the requirements for dikes and landfills. Next slide, please. So it's a little bit different than operating a quarry. In that a quarry, you look for a good source of material, and you just get your sand from it, or you just get your rock from it, and you have very limited other waste. With GRT, we've taken everything from the boulders you see armoring the stone there next to the Northern Port Authority to clay. So we have to find a use for every single bit of product that we create. And over the past almost 2 years now, our materials have been used for bedding sand, concrete sand. Everybody can read it: pond liners, geotechnical fill, dikes, drainage, foreshore improvements, xeriscaping. So we've used it found a whole bunch of different uses for our material, and we sell that material to the local construction industry. Next slide, please. What does this result in? We save about 6,000 tons of CO2 per year in the NIMO. So that by 2032, it'll be 60,000 tons, which is equivalent to taking 1,300 cars off the road in Vancouver Island. Our NIMO facility was our first facility. We're going to put a facility in Vancouver, and that facility will save approximately 26,000 tons per year. So it's a much greater savings, and that savings comes from being able to reuse the material, so you do not have to mine the aggregate, and you don't have to truck the aggregate or the waste oil such a long distance, because the facilities are closer to where it's being generated. Next slide, please. At the end of the day, for our clients, and some clients, it's more important to some clients than it is to other clients, we're able to earn LEED and Envision points for their buildings and their developments through waste diversion and recycled aggregate. And this is a picture from our plant and some of the pea gravel that comes out from where when we're operating. Next slide, please. These are our clients for the past, I guess now 22 months that we've been operating. We've got, TELUS, Stantec, GFL, Aecon, Canada. We've been really embraced by the local BC industry. We've been embraced by the construction industry, the condo builds. Everybody on the island has done really well with us, and we've done really well by them. City of Victoria, City of Nanaimo, all great clients of ours. Next slide, please. So to date, and we put this together a little while ago, we've diverted 130,000 tons from landfills on Vancouver Island. And when we do this, we can destroy organic contaminants that are in the soil, but we can't destroy metals. So some of the metals remain. So we have 120,000 tons of recycled aggregate that goes out. So 10,000 tons gets reused in an industrial process because of the metals that are in it. Next slide, please. So some of the barriers to entry that we have, land. We want to be very close to urban areas to reduce transportation costs both in and out. So land is very important for us to find. And funding, because we're a private industry in the circular economy, and most of the funding is out there is based on governments. So we have been able to access some through IRAP to be able to develop our processes. but there's other limited funding out there. And government regulation. This is new. And there's just no slight on the government at all, but this is so new that there's no regulations in place for it. So we've got a great relationship with the Ministry of Environment, both provincially and federally. They love what we're doing, and they are rewriting some of the legislation to support what we're doing. But until we came and we were able to see what we're able to produce, they didn't know how to regulate it. So right now in the picture there, that's our plant in the Nanaimo. We're in Duke Point. We're right next to the ocean. You can see sand, you can see clay, you can see 4-inch minus aggregate, you can see pea gravel. That all comes out of our plant. Next slide, please. So in addition to financial goals and CO2 goals, there's also the sustainability goals, UN sustainability goals. And we track where we are with this, and we actively manage making sure that we are meeting these goals as well. And that comes everywhere from green jobs to waste diversion to First Nations partnerships. And of our employees at our plant, approximately 40% have identified as First Nations to us, which is good too, because it's great to be able to have a local workforce who are interested in what you're doing and engaged in what you're doing. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is, our little bit. I don't like the word global remediation technology. I like the word GRT because we're not global yet. We're only on Vancouver Island, but we're striving to create a cleaner world, and cleaner world based on a sustainable economy, one little bit at a time. And it's I'm looking here. I'm at the plant today, and since we've been here, there's been another 300 tons come in and be put in to be processed. So it's working out really well for us. Any questions?
Thank you so much for that presentation, Peter. It's really amazing to see the quantity of material that you're able to process and the impact, the environmental and economic impact of that. Kate, I see, has her hand up for a question. So Kate, I'll let you take yourself off of mute and ask that to Peter.
Thanks, Georgia. Hi, Peter. I'm Kate Mock from Government of British Columbia. I am just curious about your planned Vancouver facility and how many tons you're expecting that facility to be able to process annually.
So the planned Vancouver facility, we would be able to process between 500,000 tons a year in one shift, 1 million tons a year in 2 shifts.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Okay. If you know of some land, let us know, because we don't have that finalized yet. We're still looking.
Yeah, I think land's always a challenge in Vancouver.
It's an extreme challenge in Vancouver. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Wonderful. Thank you for the question, Kate. I see 2 questions in the chat here. They're quite similar, I would say. The first question asking if you take in soil with toxic materials and how you process that if you do. And the second question again around, is there any contaminated soils that you won't take and are unable to process at your facility?
So we take in contaminated and uncontaminated soils. We have a permit to take in contaminated soils. Our process does take the contamination out and destroys organic contaminants. And we do concentrate the metals contaminants. And when we concentrate it, we create a high metals content material, which is used in an industrial process by one of our customers. So there's some stuff we won't take. We will not take hazardous waste. And we have to be very careful as engineers wanting to do stuff. There is a place in this for landfills. If we have a highly contaminated material, even if it is hazardous waste, we will not take that, because our process is more for the lower contaminated stuff, and we would gum up our filters. It would take so much energy that we would have to turn away other jobs. So we would send heavily contaminated, like something with really, really high hydrocarbons should go for thermal desorption. Like there's other solutions that would be there. There's a question here about salt contamination. Yeah, a lot of what we do is take salt out, and we either, and this is what you'll find funny, We either take the salt out and it gets reused, or we try to concentrate it in the sand and it gets sold for winter sands on the roads because they don't have to add as much salt to the sand. So what's contamination to one person is a requirement of somebody else. So we're able to pull it out and then put it back in and create a product that you don't have to bring in salt and put on the roads because, or as much salt, because the sand comes pre-salted.
I really love the way that you just worded that, Peter, especially around, we're taking what is a contaminant or a waste for somebody else, and that's actually a resource for another party. And I think that is just, such a great way to explain what the circular economy is and what we're trying to do. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. There's one here in the chat from Pat Deacon, asking, what do you need besides land for your process? He said he saw a wash. Is that just the water? What else is involved?
So it's run on hydro, so we need electricity, obviously. Water is 100% recycled in the process. We are water negative, which means that we hydrate the clays. So we take in the soils, and in order to create a clay product which is usable, we have to hydrate it and turn it into a substance which can be molded. So we use water in the process, but we don't dispose of any water. We take the water, for every ton of soil, we use 4 tons of water in the process, but that 4 tons of water goes through a treatment system. All the contaminants are removed from the water and it's used over and over and over and over and over again. We just add in extra water to account for what goes into the clays.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then I think this will be the last question we have here, coming from Leanne. So she's saying, I know you try to find markets for all aggregate produced from the soil, but overall, what is the biggest demand from customers?
Customers want the traditional sands and pea gravels. And what we've done is we have, if you bring in your soil, you have first option in taking aggregate back for your construction projects. So you can get it there because we want to have the trucks that come in leave full to save the CO2 emissions. The second one is there's a local supplier in Nanaimo who operates quarries. We wholesale to them, and then they don't have to mine their quarry. So we wholesale to them, and they take it and manage it from there. We only do like 3 or 4 customers besides our main customers. It's 5 ones to bring soil in. We send soil back out again, and then they send it out from there. Everything is completely tested and verified clean before it goes out and certified and everything. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with this group today. I do encourage folks, if you have any other lingering questions, to pop those in the chat. And perhaps, Peter, if you're able to share your contact information in case anybody wants to reach out afterwards, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So with our last 10 minutes here, I wanted to just discuss a few other circular solutions as it pertains to construction. And I wish I could have brought in guest speakers for all of these, but we would have needed like a 2 or 3 day event to discuss all of what can be done within circular economy in the built environment. So this is really just a taster. So one of the things we often talk about in terms of circular solutions is the opportunity for design for disassembly. So with this, you're really considering the structure's end of life during the design phase. And you heard Noah talking about that in his presentation as well, and in some of those considerations. So design for disassembly strategies also acknowledge the ease of renovation and repairability over the structure's life as well. So some really important considerations here. And so when we're looking at DFD, we're looking at material selection, those fasteners and connection points, and the assembly design. So the goals of DFD are to streamline the deconstruction process, reduce the time and cost associated with deconstruction, and allow for the maximum recovery of materials. And there is a really great resource that was created by the Lighthouse Sustainability Society, and it's a design for disassembly checklist, and it notes key considerations. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested to take a look at Lighthouse Sustainability Society's report on this. The next opportunity is deconstruction, and this is something that is being talked about more and more. We're seeing a lot more bylaws coming into place across BC to support deconstruction. And with deconstruction, we can see, the ability to divert up to 90% of material from landfill. There's opportunities to receive federal and provincial tax credits if this is a residential build, and those can help make it a more cost comparative practice to traditional demolition. It also allows you to salvage valuable materials like old growth lumber, windows, appliances, copper piping, and so on. And this diagram here on the right-hand side just shows the material waste streams in its typical deconstruction, what is being sent to landfill, reused or donated, and recycled. And a great example of deconstruction in action is a project that took place in Parksville on the island with, it was the Duo Townhomes construction project. And this was done by Hearst Avenue Townhouses and Tectonica Management. And they opted to deconstruct the existing structures on site, and they were able to achieve a 94% diversion rate by volume. So this was a very collaborative project. They worked with local organizations such as Unbuilders and the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange and Habitat for Humanity and DEMEC Center to really support the deconstruction within this project. We'll look at procurement as well. And again, hearing NOAA talk about more demand from their clients for sustainably procured products. So some considerations is, using reusable or recyclable materials or salvaged materials. Materials that contain recycled content. They're durable, they're going to have a long lifespan, locally sourced, and then salvaged, which I had already mentioned there. Additional considerations within procurement are different kind of certifications that you could look for in products. So there's the Cradle to Cradle certification, and this is a globally recognized certification program for products that are safe, circular, and responsibly made. So products, through the certification, it assesses materials and products across 5 categories of sustainability performance, including material health, product circularity, clean air and climate protection, water and soil stewardship, and social fairness. And this certification is also recognized in the US GBC Well Building Standard, as well as LEED certifications. The next one is FSC certified, and this is ensuring that wood products have been harvested from sustainably managed forests. Green Guard, looking at building materials, flooring, and furniture, ensuring that products have been tested and evaluated to meet stringent chemical emissions limits. And then lastly, of course, Energy Star, which I'm sure most of us are all familiar with, certifying products that meet strict energy efficiency standards and really help users save in the long term. One of the real key conversations we've been having a lot lately within the construction industry and circularity is around waste diversion. So of course, looking at, if you remember that circular model I shared at the beginning, those inner loops first, what can be reduced and reused or redistributed amongst the community, but for where we can't utilize those re-entry mechanisms, looking at additional waste diversion opportunities such as recycling and implementing a comprehensive waste diversion station. So on-site waste diversion can reduce your disposal costs by up to 30%. Really encourage you to ensure that you're planning ahead. Consider what materials are going to be generated on site and their estimated quantity. Where would you set up your station to ensure the ease of access for waste haulers? What bin size do you need, and any coverage considerations to help store those materials? Clear signage, how are you going to communicate that with your staff and subcontractors? And putting these considerations into place so that you can have a successful waste diversion program. And we're seeing bans at landfills, even here on the CRD recently announced, of construction material, specific construction materials being banned from landfills. So it's just a key consideration to have. And then also looking at, can you utilize local donation centers? So we've talked about Demex and Restore. These are great to keep the materials in circulation at their highest value. And finally, two more to touch on within waste diversion, sea to sky removal. So this is a company that is based on the Lower Mainland. However, they have a great recycling toolkit available on their website. So if you are interested in setting up a waste diversion station at your construction site, I encourage you to check out their resources. They've got great signage. They kind of dive deeper into those considerations I was talking about in the previous slide, waste calculator tool. They also have some tips and tricks on how to communicate your practices to your team and your sub-trades as well, to have everybody engaged in the waste diversion practices on site. The Regional District of Nanaimo also recently published a construction waste best practices guide. So this guide has a whole section on waste diversion with specific opportunities within the Regional District of Nanaimo. However, the general contents of the guide are applicable regardless of where you are located, and it touches on reuse opportunities, procurement, deconstruction, adaptive reuse, and so on. So I encourage you to take a look at that guide as well. So as we wrap up today in our final minutes, I just want to share some next steps. And, the first one being start small. You don't have to make huge investments or big plans immediately. Start by identifying 2 to 3 small actions that you can make within your operations today and start to get your team on board with that. Which leads next into starting a green team, or if you have a smaller operation, perhaps identifying your zero waste champion. So these are staff members that can be sustainability leaders within your organization and really spearhead your sustainability initiatives. Think about conscious consuming and consider where you're spending your money. We've talked today about spending that money within our local economy, but also applying that circular lens to your procurement strategy and considering the durability of material, the product inputs. So choosing recycled content over virgin content, products repairability and expected lifespan, and the disposal options at end of life. Start the conversation. So within your team, within your industry, with your peers, get the conversation going around circularity and what it means for your operations. And continue to seek additional learning opportunities. So whether it's more discussions like we're having today, perhaps joining different associations to continue the conversation around circularity. There's also courses at institutions such as BCIT, where they have some great courses on deconstruction management and sustainable construction practices. And lastly, continue to find ways to reduce and find new uses for your waste. So this could look like doing a waste audit or considering new uses for your waste streams, or how you could perhaps tackle that waste within your supply chain as well. So I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for taking the time out of your days to join this session today. Thank you to our guest speakers, and thank you to VICEDA as well. As Amrit mentioned at the beginning, there are 2 other webinars in this series. So if you're interested, we've got one on food and beverage processing and another on how local government can support the transition to a circular economy. So I encourage you to register for those if you're able to attend. We'll also be publishing a business guide later in June that talks about how to address circularity within your business's operations. Please reach out to us at Synergy Foundation if you have any questions or are interested in learning more. And we're right at 11 o'clock, so I'll wrap it up there and just thank you all again for taking the time to attend today. I hope you have a great afternoon.